Trail running crew is going to give you their favorites of 2020 and a year in review. So we have Jeff Valliere in Colorado, John Tribbia in Colorado, Adam Glueck and Sam in New Hampshire, Jacob Brady in Maine, and Jeff Beck in Colorado as well. Jeff Valliere, tell us about your
And
year.
some of the big highlights.
All right. Well, I had a great year running, mostly trail. I would say I have, let's see, 1,556 miles, and I'd say all but maybe 50 of that was on trail.
Hey, wait a minute.
Even
I
if,
got the same exact mileage as you, but how much vertical did you have?
as of today, I have
500 now.
567,100 vertical feet.
Okay. That's like
A little over 500,000.
That's about 6 times my vertical with the same miles. And okay. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, quite a bit of vertical, mostly, steep technical trails above Boulder, some stuff in the mountains, 13ers, 14ers, not as many faraway trips this year with COVID and all. A lot of local stuff, which is not all that abnormal. Having kids, I'm stuck around close to home anyway. So, but yeah, quite a good year running. Some of my favorite trail shoes this year, as we published in the article recently, there's some real amazing advancements this year in midsole technology, just lighter weight, better cushioning, more stack height with being stable, protective, great outsole. Some of my favorite, I think I put as my very favorite shoe of the year was the Salomon Sense Pro 4. Some of the earlier iterations didn't work very well for me. Version 1 was a good shoe, but I felt a little exposed. It felt a little thin on the technical trails I preferred, and the tread was fairly minimal. But with the Sense Pro 3, the previous one to the 4, I was excited. That one looked really nice. It had really good tread and a nice upper, but it was narrow underfoot. There was something about it that was really tippy and unstable for me. But they fixed all of that with the.
I even agree with you. That was a nasty shoe.
It was scary. I have really strong ankles and I'm really adept in technical terrain, but friends would run behind me and they'd ask, "What's up? Looks like you're gonna roll your ankle." So I didn't run in those at all beyond my review period. But the Sense Pro 4, they fixed all of that. It is such a locked in upper. It almost feels custom fit. It's not very thin underfoot. I mean, you wouldn't want to run an ultra all day in it, but for a couple hours of really fast running, it's perfect. Really good protection underfoot, amazing traction. Not the hugest lugs, but they're effective. They have really good grip on loose terrain, rocky slab, no matter what the speed. I mean, I pushed those shoes really hard this summer. I even came within a minute on one of my PRs on a route on Green Mountain, which involves kind of an off trail, just straight up the mountain, straight back down, really steep. You fall, you're going to break bones sort of terrain. And with the Sense Pro 4, I came within a minute of my PR, which is like really good for me. That was a really stout PR.
So how old was the PR?
9 years ago.
Oh, 9
What's that?
Wow.
9 years ago. It was from 2011. So, I was 40. That was pretty close to my prime, I think, as far as running up and down hills. So to come within a minute of that at age 49, I felt really good about. And I think some of it was these shoes. I was really motivated, but the shoes helped a lot. They were just they're light, they're fast, they're responsive. They just do everything I want them to do for that route. So that was my top shoe of the year. I guess I'm going in reverse order, but
That's okay.
I have other notable mentions. The Saucony Exodus 10 was that was a shock to me this year. I almost turned it down after previous Exodus versions, which were they were heavy. There's just a low top hiker really that looked like a running shoe, but they dropped about 2 ounces off of it. They really refined the upper, the midsole. They changed so many things. I don't even think they should call it an Exodus anymore. Really, they should have just come up with a different name. But it's got aggressive tread, very secure foothold. It's got responsive midsole. It's soft and compliant, but not overly soft or mushy. It's very predictable. It's adept in technical terrain, and surprisingly, it also runs really good on the road. It's a great door to trail shoe. Runs fast on pavement. You're not just getting by to get to the trail. It performs really well, and then once you get to the trail, it does about anything. You run all day in the shoe. It's maximal enough for ultra distance events, or just long days on your feet without ever feeling fatigued. So that was a really surprise, one of my favorites of the year. Favorite, long distance all around trail shoe. And then another shoe that I really enjoyed was the Brooks Cascadia 15. The Cascadias were a favorite way back, around the 4th or 5th iteration. That was like, they were kind of leading the game then, but then so many other brands started making new shoes. Well, I feel like the Cascadia somewhat fell behind. They got heavy and kind of stiff, but with the 14th version and then now the 15th, they've really refined it. They've dropped some weight. They've made it more flexible. The outsole is more durable while providing excellent all-around traction. The upper is really secure and dialed in. It's the shoe that I keep in my car all the time. If I'm not sure what I'm going to do and just need some shoe that will fit the bill for about anything I decide, that will do it. If it's a quick run on technical trails or off trails, steep, mixed terrain, this is just the shoe that does it all really well for me.
Well, we all pretty much agreed, not everybody, but that Saucony was really the brand of the year. They really hit it off in really all categories, both road and trail. And you mentioned Brooks. Personally, I think Brooks did outperformed in trail and was sort of a little behind in road. So there's some good thoughts there for Brooks and trail, and Saucony in all categories. Really remarkable year for them.
I had them tied as I couldn't decide between the two brands which I preferred more. I think they've both come out with some real hits this past year. Saucony with their upgrades to the Peregrine, the Exodus, the Mad River TR2, the Switchback with the BOA, very nice. They're all very, very good shoes. They've improved them a lot. They're all shoes that I just keep on my top shelf and pick from regularly. And then Brooks with the Caldera 4, and then this year with the leading into the 5 for 2021. I mean, they're such top-notch shoes. They're so comfortable. They've got, good foothold, but, a lot of people with wider feet. I know Jeff Beck might disagree with the new updated Caldera 5, but, they've all been hits for me.
John's been waiting, so let's go, John. If you don't mind, Adam, we'll go with John.
Sounds good. Thanks, Sam. My shoes are under my desk. So, as we noted, we're transitioning into trail, and I actually found myself broadly very much enjoying road to trail. So I guess I'm a good transition into this category. And I specifically found 3 shoes that kind of graded themselves into road to trail, stronger trail orientation, and then really kind of getting into strong technical situations that needed a shoe that you could really trust and rely on. So my first shoe that I felt was outstanding this year was the Brooks Catamount. Technically, it's oriented for longer distances based on how they designed it. It is very well worn, as you can see. I'm rubbing into the midsole from the outsole. I put a lot of miles on this shoe, and what I really appreciated about it was that it has excellent energy return with a really firm plate throughout the shoe, and itself has you know reasonable cushioning, and for me a preferable weight, which is not overly lightweight to where your feet and legs get beat up by putting in a lot of miles, but light enough to feel like you can really turn the rockets on. And so I've used this shoe for a variety of purposes, anywhere from road, strictly road long runs, to climbing up 3,000 foot vertical climbs through the mountain peaks here in Colorado. And I've found that it's very trustworthy, both because the traction provides enough grip to a variety of terrain, but also it really is leg saving. And I felt like it was one that I could put in a lot of hours on the trail or the road and not feel like my legs were about to give out or feel overly sore the next day. So that's shoe one, road to trail. Second shoe is more trail oriented, and I've never really grown fond of Hoka. And so this is the first Hoka shoe that I've actually very much enjoyed, in part because of the lower stack height. This is the Hoka Torrent 2. It is about the comparable weight that you'd find with the Cantamount. It has a more aggressive outsole and actually no plate to protect from rocks or within the technical terrain. But what I really enjoyed about the shoe was the very comfortable fit, but also the ground feel that you would get that you technically, for me, didn't really get from other Hokas that I had tried with higher stack height. So with the ground feel, for me, it's really important as a personal preference, because it allows me to better know the terrain that I'm going in and feel more comfortable dodging and going in and out of technical obstacles. And so in the mountain terrain, I felt like this shoe was exceptional at providing that nimble feel, having that same lightweight characteristic as the Cantamount, but orienting me more towards that technical terrain and less towards kind of the road or very well groomed trails. And so this is my next shoe of the year. And then finally, kind of moving into a very much trail and mountain oriented shoe is the Salomon Sense 4 Pro. This shoe is my shoe of the year. It is a shoe that is a little more weight savings compared to the Catamount and Hoka, and the fit is incomparable to anything I've ever put on. Now, granted, I'm very partial to Salomon. I want to put a disclaimer out there. I've run in Salomon competitively, and prior to joining the RTR team, was wearing Salomon for over 6 years on the competitive trail circuit. And so I know their shoes really well, but this shoe itself is one that goes above and beyond the game that they had been playing before. It is very form-fitting, and when you're on the trail, in any terrain, given with the exception of extremely icy terrain, which is impossible for most shoes to navigate on without metal traction, I felt the most secure and very confident in the shoe. And when you don't have to think about a shoe when you're on very technical terrain, it allows you to open up your ability to find or navigate efficiently through that terrain, whether it's up or down. And so it gives you the confidence and the ability to be aggressive, to go fast, whether it's up or down, and be able to navigate through really tight areas, on top of rock, on top of trail, mud, and anything in between. And so what I really appreciated about this shoe was that confidence that it gave me. And I think Jeff Valliere put it really tacitly in his review earlier this year, that it was very predictable, and in a predictable in the sense that you can ultimately put this shoe on and know that your feet are going to be fine, and everything else allows you to focus on your breathing, your navigation or whatnot. So when you know that you're not going to slip out from under you, it's truly a shoe that is one to appreciate. So that's my shoe of the year, but actually I tied with the Cantamount, because originally I gave a 8.8 out of 10 ranking on the Cantamount, but over time, as you can see, I kept growing to love the shoe because of its ability to be a really strong contender for a road to trail. Now, lastly, on the topic of traction, I was fortunate enough to come into the game late on testing the Black Diamond distance spike. And this is the tech gear that I felt was, for me, the best that I tested all year. I've tested a lot of competing brands of traction devices. And what I found with this is that it's very, very lightweight. And when you compare to other brands, packing it or carrying your spikes can be a little cumbersome, or just downright annoying. And I found that there was very little annoyance packing that, because it comes with a nice little sack that you can throw them into, put them into your Camelback or vest pack that you're wearing, or even just hook it to a hip belt. It's got a shoe forefoot cover to protect from any of the elements, but more so to keep it intact and on the shoe. And what I found with other brands that don't have this forefoot cover is that it actually is easy to slip off or become wonky on top of the shoe. And this itself is very secure on the foot, and as a result, provides a lot of durability. Because when I was having those slip off and coming on the trail on off camber situations, that it would tug the elastic, and the elastic would break. So I've broken several pairs of those, and with that forefoot cover, the security itself on the shoe is unparalleled to anything I've ever tried. So lightweight, great traction for that lightweight combo, but also extremely durable, and one that I can rely on for a long time. Not to mention, the person who set the fastest known time recently over the summer, Kyle Richardson, he's a Black Diamond athlete. He lives and dies by these micro spikes. He set the fastest known time on Long's Peak, which was a long-standing time here in Colorado, and one that's very famous and difficult to achieve. And so another endorsement from someone who is really good in the trails. In terms of my running for this year, unfortunately, we as a household are fairly locked down because of a heightened health risk here. So most of my running is actually from my house in the early morning hours before I log on to work. And, I've put in, mostly general miles, but no racing this year, but enjoying trying out a multiplicity of shoes that come through our regular testing queue, and comparing them with what I've tested in the past. This has been a great year, and really appreciate all the support that you've given me, Sam. So thanks for this opportunity and the opportunity to share what I felt like were my favorite shoes this year.
Thank you, John, and thanks everybody for all the wonderful running and reviewing in this year. Just as a side note, we calculated about 50,000 miles worth of running. I forget the vertical, but it's got to be close to a million of vertical. And the team, I counted about 275 articles on the year, many of them for shoes. So the effort's been amazing, and it's a lot of fun to work with everybody. Really, it's really a privilege for an old guy like me. Now, Adam, why don't you do trail for that in?
Sounds great. And thanks for the time. So for trail shoes, I have three I want to mention. First of which is the Salomon S-Lab Ultra 3. I've had all the original Ultras, had the original S-Lab Sense Ultra, which was basically a higher stack height midsole stuck onto the upper of one of the Racing Sense shoes that I absolutely loved. I've worn the traction off them basically, and they're almost unusable, but they're still so fun I can't bear to get rid of them. And then since then, they beefed up the shoe significantly, added these wing things on the side that theoretically made the upper more secure. But I always longed for like a more protective midsole with a precise upper. At least a little background on me trail running. I like things that are pretty responsive. I'm slightly larger than most of the runners my speed because I'm a cross-country skier and have to lug my upper body everywhere. And I run with a pretty slow cadence, usually about 160 steps a minute versus I think the 180 you're supposed to run with. So I like shoes that are responsive and stable. The main thing I liked about this was the upper is very protective but very secure. So this lets me run on very technical mountainous terrain while still having a reasonable amount of protection, good rock plate, good traction, and like moving in a direction I like. It's 2 mil more stacked than the previous version. I ran my first trail ultra in these this year on the Penny Loop in New Hampshire, which is like 30-ish miles, 10,000 feet of elevation gain. So they held me through that and I didn't break my feet. So I think that's worthy of some consideration. They're a protective shoe that still gives enough ground feel and precision to leap from rock to rock. Other shoe I really like that surprised me a lot this year as well, and probably a tie between those two for my trail shoe of the year, is the Asics Trabuco Max. And I haven't ran an Asics in a while actually, honestly, and I didn't really think they made trail shoes, or at the very least I didn't hear about anyone using them very much. So when I got this, I was like, looks fine, we'll see how it runs. But I was genuinely very surprised. This is the first trail shoe with a rocker that I've actually found to be beneficial. It has very responsive flight foam that isn't so soft that it like ends up being like uncontrollably cushy, but also has energy to it and pop and return, and it's quite fun to run. And even on road, a lot of these trail shoes, you take them on the road and you're like, I'd like a road shoe, but this one isn't too bad. And it's a very stiff shoe. It doesn't have a rock plate, but ends up being pretty protective just because of the stiffness. And it's really satisfying to just be on terrain that isn't quite as technical for rock placement. The rocker will just launch you forward, and especially on easy days where I'm feeling beat up and don't feel like I'm going to go very fast, that is a shoe that just makes you want to pick up the pace a little bit and makes it easier to do so. The upper definitely could use some improvement, which is why it was not fully a easily better shoe than the Salomon. If I could take the upper off a Salomon Sense, or honestly, if I could take the upper off the Kinvara 12 and put it on that shoe, it would be phenomenal. Though that would fix a lot of shoes. But that was a surprise for me, and I'm really excited to see Asics combining their guide sole rocker with their flight foam, sticking that on more trail shoes, and to see where it goes. Because if this is their first attempt, it's a very intriguing concept and a lot of fun to run with that I did not expect. And this one is a little bit weird for a trail shoe. My third choice, I guess you could technically call this a road to trail because I think it was originally advertised as a road shoe, is the Salomon Sonic 3 Accelerate. And this is weird, but sometimes I'm like, trail shoes are fun, but I don't need quite as much traction today. I don't need a rock plate. I'm not hopping on rocks. I want something light, but I also don't want to like tear one of my shoes with nice, soft, bouncy foam to pieces. So I tried taking this out on trail, and I was like, I wonder how it will do. And actually, it is surprisingly good. It's reasonably responsive and has excellent vibration dampening, thanks to the, I think this is what is this? This is OptiVibe, which is some sort of elastomer vibration dampening insert, which I actually found quite effective on road for descending. But overall, the same things that make Salomon trail shoes good, the upper, and then also just like the fact that while this is a reasonably cushioned responsive midsole, it's firm enough that you don't feel like your foot's washing all over the place. That precision means that I ran this on a bunch of mountain bike trails, moderate trail running, like anything where I'm not leaping from rock to rock, and it's pretty damn good at it. So not originally intended as a trail shoe, but definitely nice for those runs where I got the door and I don't know if I'm going to run a road, if I'm going to run a trail, some of each. Put a lot of miles on this shoe, and it's actually holding up pretty well too. I really like the upper on this. It has nice cushioning around the heel. So yeah, those are my trail shoes of the year. There's been an
Next up, Jacob Brady in Portland, Maine, who runs both road and trail.
I'll go for my trail shoes now. So I have 3 picks here. The first one I don't have with me, so I'll talk about that one first. That is the Topo Run Venture 3. It was the first Topo athletic shoe that I've run, and as soon as I put it on the first time, I knew that it was one of the best fitting shoes that I had ever worn. It was just for my sort of medium width foot, but I liked space around my littlest toe. It was the perfect fit. So it was precise enough that the edge of the upper was right there, but enough that my toes could splay. And it's a lower drop shoe than or lower stack shoe, 0 drop, lower stack shoe than I usually run. But it made it really fun for feeling the ground and feeling all the terrain I was running over. Prior to that, my primary trail shoe had been the Hoka Speedgoat 3 and Evo Speedgoat. So I got used to that over the end of 2019 when I was in the fall of 2019, where I was doing more ultra distance trail running. Then in 2020, I started off the year testing the Run Venture, which I didn't get a lot of miles in it until the snow cleared. So it was more like the spring. And then whenever I'd go out where I was not planning on running more than an hour, or even sometimes just doing a mini loop, like a 3-mile trail run at a higher speed, I would choose the Run Venture 3 every time. And it just felt like I was really connected to the ground. I felt kind of like a deer running through the woods. It was great traction and really natural feel. I hadn't experienced that in any other shoe. So really fun for the shorter, fast flying through the forest connected to the ground runs. Then in a similar realm, another 0 drop trail shoe, my trail shoe of the year, it's the Innovate Terra Ultra G270. This was a fun start to this one in that a lot of the RTR team had already tested it, the green colorway. And Sam reached out and asked if I wanted to try the new colorway. And after reading what everybody said, of course, I was so excited to try it. Don had said it was his favorite, potentially is the best trail shoe he's ever run. And so going in with that hype, I'm more likely to be skeptical about it. And I think also in the end, it's my favorite trail shoe I've ever run. It just the level of traction or ground feel and rebound from a lightly bouncy sock liner midsole combination, and flexibility is perfect for just all around trail running and hiking. I use this shoe for every hike that I did in the fall 2020 and couldn't have asked for anything else. The fit is also 10 out of 10 for me. It's like, it reminded me when Chen said that the Tarthredge was a glove-like fit. That's what this is. I don't even notice it on my foot. The only negative there is that it's hard to put on, but it's not really, that's not a worthwhile negative. But once it's on, it's just completely foot conforming with no slop, and it doesn't feel tight. Like I don't have to lace it tightly. It just feels like it's just on there and it's not going to move at all. So amazing construction, both from great grip, great balanced cushioning and flexibility and ground feel, and a superb upper. So just a joy to use on every type of run. And then my last one is is a pick for sort of daily trainer, do it all random shoe for a similar reason that I picked the Freedom 3 for that on road. So this is the Saucony Switchback 2. It has a Power Run Plus midsole as well, bouncy and very flexible, just like the Freedom 3. And I use it for pretty much the same thing, which is if I don't know if I'm going to do road or trail, or I'm going somewhere and I'm not going to bring a lot of shoes, or I'm just going to wear the shoe that I'm going to run in. Maybe if I'm going camping or something for one day and might run both of the days, as long as it's not going to be technical single track, this shoe can run road and trail very well and is light. And most importantly, the extremely easy to put on and fits well. So with the BOA closure, it's been revolutionary for just like being able to just grab the shoe and put it on and then leave, rather than having to lace it and maybe worry about relacing it or something. I was even trying with this shoe to see if I could adjust the tension while I was running without stopping, like doing a jump and tightening it in the air. And it's doable enough that you can like only take a second to do it. So there's something about that I really liked, and I'm going to look for more shoes with the BOA closure. So this is just like all purpose. I think I wore this walking more than any other shoe in 2020, as well as random runs. So a very fun shoe.
Thanks, Jacob. That's great. I echo the BOA in the Agravic Tech Pro, the high top. It's very effective in the right situations, you know. Yeah, so I'm going to do my trails right now, and then we're going to go to Adam for some road that I'm going to splice in. So as far as trail running, most of my trail running this year was in Utah on smoother single track, as well as on my test loop in Stratham, New Hampshire, which has in about 5.5 miles, just a bit of everything, including some rocks, some roots, some fields, and even some road. So I tested all the shoes in Stratham, and I tested them all in Utah, or most all of them in Utah. And I also did a lot of hiking in the White Mountains as my wife finished her 4,000 footers. And as Jacob knows, the White Mountains are about as technical and nasty and rocky and rooty as a place on earth for hiking. And I'm a bit too old to actually run it, but I used to. So all the shoes were run there and tested there. So my shoe of the year is the Innovate Terra Ultra G270 for all the reasons Adam mentions. It really isn't a big change from the 260 if you just look at it. However, they really remodeled it top to bottom. Softer midsole with a lot of bounce, a really innovative, and it's from Innovate, sock liner with TPU beads that give it spring and bounce. And of course, the graphene grip outsole and a tremendous upper that drains, breathes, and fits like a glove, just as Jacob said. I not only broke most all of my segment PRs in Park City and in Stratham in this shoe, but it was my hiking shoe in the White Mountains. You wouldn't think there's enough shoe here, but the flexibility and agility on rock is tremendous. And I never had tired legs after 12-mile hikes with lots of vertical. It's an incredibly versatile shoe. It's also mighty fine on the road. So the second one, which I tested mainly at the end of the winter, is the Exodus 10 from Saucony. It has that Power Run Plus that Jacob likes in the Freedom and the Switchback, but a lot more of it. This shoe, as you can see, has a rock plate, but is also flexible. Is about as versatile a heavy-duty shoe as you'll find, as it's also tremendous on the road. It has grip forever on snow and in mud. It's just, it lost about 2 ounces from its predecessor, which was really kind of a hiker. It's a great door-to-trail option and heavy-duty shoe. It was my pick for long trail runs as well.
And then finally, echoing Adam this time for Door to Trail, there were a lot of good contenders, the Caldera, the Brand Black Tarantula, but the Asics Trabuco Max really shocked us. We really hadn't seen any trail shoes from Asics, and they pretty much refused us to send us anything they had until they surprised us with the Trabuco Max. The cushioning is just right for trail. That's plenty protected without a rock plate. The outsole is kind of noisy on road, but is just fine. So it'll do just about anything. Yes, there's some issues with the quick lace and so on and so forth, but it's a very comfortable shoe. Great rocker profile. So it's really a fine new entry by Asics into the trail game. And in fact, I would say compared to the Glide Ride 2 for road, which has a plate in it, there's no plate here. If they just slim down the outsole a bit and maybe change the upper, they'd have one heck of a road shoe option with this platform of flight foam and no plate. And then finally, just a little bit of tech. There were 3 GPS watches that I really liked this year, all for kind of different reasons. I'm a Apple guy, but the Wear OS Sunto 7 with now a microfiber band, super flexible and light, is really an intriguing option as it has full topo maps on board. The battery life isn't huge because of the resolution of the screen, which is about double any other watch. They call it an adventure watch. I call it the ideal day hike watch, as long as your hike isn't too long. There's excellent, easy routing through it. It's really a fine watch. And my go-to watch day in, day out last several years has been a Polar, because I like the nightly recharge statistics and the long-term trends. The Vantage V2, lighter, incredible battery life, very elegant watch. It's Polar. If you're serious about tracking your training, there's nothing quite like Polar, I think, in their platform, the Polar Flow. And then finally, I don't have it because Dom Layfield's testing it, the Pace 2 from Coros, $200, the lightest GPS watch yet created at under 30 grams, accurate, fully featured, all for $200 with a nylon strap that's really comfortable. They set the bar really high in value with that watch and performance. So now let's move over to, okay, Jeff Beck.
Yes, sir.
You can start with road or trail. You can look at, what are you on, a golf course there or something? What's going on?
That's Kona, Hawaii, my old stomping grounds. I used to be a caddy there. Of course, it's called Nanea. But when Jeff started talking about his shoe, it kind of blew my mind, because I made a point not to read other reviewers' lists when I made mine, and I guess I didn't realize the Exodus 10 was this year. I thought that was a shoe from last year, because that shoe, it's incredible. It really, incredible traction, incredible durability, cushioning. If you said you were only able to keep one shoe and this is your shoe for everything, that's probably my shoe. You know, that shoe just, it does everything well. And actually, you were the one that put it on my radar that it was a great road shoe, and you're not kidding. It is a phenomenal road shoe, which I just goes to show how much Saucony killed it this year. My other trail shoes that I'd like to talk about, because so Exodus, I mean, just incredible. So even though it wasn't on my list, it should have been, and it would have been the top of it. The New Balance More Trail was a really impressive shoe. It's funny, but that showed up the same time as a few other shoes, and I think the other shoes had more of a priority as far as embargoes go and win the review. So I had them in the house for about a week or 10 days before I ever ran in them, and I kept seeing them around the house, and I'm like, that's not a speed. Oh no, that's the Fresh Foam. That's and it looked so much like the Speed Goat 4, which is a great shoe. And I might like the More Trail more. even though the Speed Goat's awesome. But the more trail, it's a little more cushioned. It's better for buffed out easy trails. Technical stuff, no doubt, the Speed Goat takes the cake there. But yeah, I was really impressed with how good New Balance's trail, because the last Hierro, the V5, that was a big disappointment. So this is just they completely killed it. But then the other shoe I'd like to talk about, the Brooks Catamount, that was really surprising. I didn't run in, what is it, the Tempo, what's the road that has the same midsole?
Hyperion Elite.
Hyperion Elite, yes.
No, I'm sorry. Hyperion Tempo.
Hyperion Tempo, yes. Okay, so I had it somewhat right. And that midsole material, really cool. Definitely a fast shoe rather than a long one. And I thought that some of their messaging may have missed the mark, because even on the shoe it talks about made for 100 miles, and there's a place for you to write your cruise name as your pacers and whatever. And I mean, I'm the furthest thing from a fast runner, but I don't know anyone that would look at that and be like, yep, that's my 100-mile shoe. Now 100 miles over a few weeks, sure, that'd be it's well cushioned enough. But that's another shoe that works well on the road as well. So another really kind of dual threat.
Sometimes the brands associate kind of marketing with elites, maybe, as a and it gets a little ahead of them. Because I would agree with you, it's a wonderful Western single track shoe. It's fast, but there are a lot of shoes that I would, if I was ever going to do 100, I would probably pick before it, just for sheer cushioning and even stability. The upper was wonderfully light, but not exactly, I would think, what I'd want when I'm really tired.
Oh, absolutely. And I thought it was interesting that they put it out in one colorway, which was white, as a trail shoe. It's like, well, okay, this is how it's going to go then. Which,
but it looked pretty sweet once it got dusty, though.
Oh, absolutely,
really cool.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's the thing. Is a dirty shoe is a well loved shoe. It's no one wants to see pictures of brand new pristine. Like wear these things out. They're things to be used. So please do it. I mean, granted, I've also had some shoe. What was it? The Nike Infinity React. I did a custom pair, the Nike by You, the Nike ID, and I never took them on the trails. And within about 40 miles, they started out white and they had gone tan. That it was just like a dirt magnet, which that was a little frustrating, but more so that I couldn't really start wearing them casually once I stopped running in them because they were so dirty.
Now, any other kind of items for trail or road that are, we'll get to road, but kind of accessories, apparel that were really special for you this year?
I am a Kogalla Raw just disciple. I think that is, if you run in low light, that's just your answer right there. Actually, an old friend of mine messaged me last night, and he's getting into more night running, and he asked me, what's a good light, and I said, I've had a couple Petzl headlamps that have been fine, but at the end of the day, it's still a flashlight strapped to your forehead, while the Kogalla Raw is like a car's high beam on your chest.
And it's such a natural light, it's,
yeah.
it's warm. It's like that sunset or what's behind you there. So
exactly. It just blankets everything. And the one thing I found, because I wore it a few times, a good friend of mine has run a number of 100Ks, and I've paced him in late stages of that. And the race that I paced him had an out and back section, and I found that I was going to blind people. So what I started doing was I would just hold my forearm over the top half of the light. So I still have plenty of light down below. And I had so many people thank me for doing that, because if you otherwise, I mean, it is just pure light everywhere. But I had, the first year I paced it, 2 years or a year ago, and then this year, I probably had 25 or 30 people bribe me or attempt to bribe me to ditch him and run with them instead,
Well, I'll tell you,
purely because of my light.
I did the hike across New Hampshire with college classmates, sort of a relay. And the guys had, puny kind of $30, $40 Petzls or black diamonds. And within minutes, because we'd started just as the sun went away, right? It was all night till 5 a.m. when it came up. After a while, they begged me not to get too far ahead because I had the Kagala.
Yeah.
Don't get too far ahead. Don't get too far ahead.
It's no joke.
They were, behind me.
Yeah, well, I also, because the people they were bribing me were usually going the other direction, but we had a few sections where it was kind of tight single track and fairly technical, which, I mean, 55 miles into 100K. I mean, my legs were fresh because I was only 5 miles in, but they were struggling. But I could tell they were faster runners, and I was like, hey, if you guys want to go by, and they're like, for whatever you do, don't stop. We're more than happy going at whatever your pace is. You're the beacon of light. And it was like, okay, so, and I know that it's not my personality. It was strictly the amount of light that thing was putting out.
So we're going to put a special link right on the YouTube here so people can go check it out if they haven't heard about it. It's an amazing, amazing way to light.
Oh, it really is. And if you do anything in low light, that's the one to use. I think Jeff agrees. Or
oh, for sure, Jeff agrees.
Yeah. I have to add, that's been one of my favorite products. It's at the top of my list for the last couple of years. That anybody I talk to who runs at night, I tell them they just have to go get one. Like, run, don't walk, get one, because it has transformed my night running. Just having a headlamp on your head, no matter how bright it is, most of them are just that sterile white light that don't really bring out the contrast. But when you have that Kogalla with that warm light, and not only is it a broad swath of warm light, it doesn't bounce. Even if it physically bounces, you don't get that jutteriness. It's just a very, very smooth and
you have
warm
five
light
bulbs,
that
right?
brings up
5 bulbs or 4?
5 bulbs, yep. There's 5, yep. Never any bounce. And I like the battery options. You can get the Backpack 1 that I use most of the time. It's just lighter, and I only need my light for an hour or two, so that's plenty for what I'm using. But I also have the Backpack 2, which will double or triple that amount of time at which you could be out if you need it. If I start my run, for morning runs, I don't need as much because I know the sun's rising. But when I start at night, could be out there longer if I got hurt or my other headlamp burnt out. I'm happy to have that extra battery power.
And it'll
charge that's
the phone just fine too. So it's a standard.
Absolutely, yep. Multi-purpose.
It has an on-off thing that doesn't go off if you're not using it, but it's a regular USB battery pack and a small one with a lot of power. Great.
And on the flip side of that, it's nice that it'll use any USB. It's not like it's a proprietary, you have to use their battery pack. If you have one that you like, by all means, just plug it in and go.
Yep.
So
absolutely,
it's phenomenal.
Which would be good for drop bags in an ultra. You could just drop them along the way, and
exactly.
You always have light. Another thing is, I run mountain summits early in the morning in the dark before the sun comes up, or at night. Friends who live in town will just happen to see me. I'll post on Strava. They'll be like, I saw you up there. And I've had people shine lights back to me. Yeah, up on the mountain, 3,000 feet above town, miles away. People see me up there and say, I knew that was you because of the lights. And then I've had people in town shine massive lasers up at me, like to try to combat, like, oh, I'll show you, you watch this. I've had this big green laser light up the summit while I was up there this summer at like 9:30 at night. It's funny. So they're just, they're so amazing.
Jeff,
I have one other, yeah.
We're going to patch you. Yeah, go ahead, Jeff. And then I'm going to go back to Jeff B. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry to dominate. I had one other product I wanted to rave about this year was the Catula Exo Spikes. I know Sam just got a pair, but those have been transformative too. They are probably the best supplemental traction you can put on your feet. For the versatility, they're good for roads, any ice, steep mountain trails, even no matter how icy the mountain trails get or how steep, they grab really well. They're high quality.
Very much for watching our Road Trail Run Best of 2020 Trail Roundup. Please stay tuned to our channel for lots of YouTube, and also please come over to our website at roadtrailrun.com and also on Instagram at RoadTrailRun. Thank you very much for watching in 2020, and here's to a great 2021.